Good morning, beloveds. Good morning. This morning I have been feeling so much about overwhelm. Overwhelm and anchoring and what is truly meaningful. Sometimes just flow of words will come to me. And to be anchored. Anchoring is a word that I use quite a lot. And this morning, the idea of what is your safe harbor? What anchors you? What grounds you? What roots you? How do we find our way to grounding and to rootedness in these times in particular, these precise times in particular that we find ourselves in? Also, that not only do we find ourselves here, but we guided ourselves here collectively as a species, as a human family. We have all contributed, and there's such a wide scope that we can go to in terms of a conversation about what it means to be human, right? This is just such a huge, massive question, and a question that I think is absolutely valuable to ask yourself, and I ask myself this on almost a minute-to-minute basis. What is it? What is it to be a human being right now? To actually be conscious and awake to why you might be here at this precise moment, right? On the mundane level, right? Back to overwhelm, right? It feels and can feel so profoundly overwhelming to be human, to be part of this human family, to be on the planet, and yet here we are. And I personally believe that we, on some level, chose or signed up or had an assignment to be here at this time. Now that's a tricksy little angle, right? Because we don't want to get into that kind of, well, you signed up for it, so you better just deal with it, right? Or any of that old paradigm nonsense, or even the spiritual, new age stuff that can come in that really can transform empowerment into this endless improvement cycle, right? The constantly having to be better, having to ascend, having to become enlightened. All of those things are part of that A to Z, right? Straight line thinking versus the spiraling motion of the universe itself, right? All of our cells are spiraling right now. Your cells are all moving in a spiral, right? And then we look at the Milky Way, right, and the whole cosmos, right? There's so much of this spiraling movement that's going on. So how do we approach overwhelm? And I want to touch a tiny bit on the idea or the concept or the principle of AI as well. Because in these moments, in these times right now, we are absolutely being faced with the turning inside out of the collective mind, right? We're seeing everything, everywhere, all at once. I've referred to that before, and it works all the time because that's what's happening right now. So it's very easy to become profoundly overwhelmed, right? And then there are many different directions we can take in that. We can, kind of try to escape, right? Try to remove ourselves completely from the entire situation, which is pretty hard to do at this moment in time, right? Most of us are part of a community, a town, a city, right? Part of an influx of information, whether even if we removed ourselves to a distant cave. Now it might be easier, it would be a lot easier to avoid, right, things like constant scrolling, right, taking in vast amounts of information in tiny kind of bite-sized pieces, so that we're just completely overwhelmed with a constant incoming. So, but most of us are not living in a cave, okay, or living in a distant, very tiny, incredibly spacious place where we're not necessarily even hooked up to the internet, right? That's very rare these days. And it's nice to be able to, if one can, to go to a place like that, to reduce the incoming and to allow ourselves to become spacious again without... There's a little squirrel behind me just talking and talking. You might be able to hear it, him or her. So, how do we create a spaciousness and a peace within us while understanding that we are in this precise moment in time, which includes everything, everywhere, all at once? So yes, of course, as I speak about, it is always returning to the miracle of your body, okay? There's a lot of intense pressure to give your authority away to something out there, right? To make it easier by using, for example, AI, or getting further entrenched in online activity. Okay, do I use things online? Obviously. I'm right here, right now, doing something on YouTube. And do I get pulled into that sinkhole? Absolutely. And so this is why I speak to this, because it's something that I utilize every day, which is to remember, wait a minute, this brilliance, right, of your body, the brilliance of your body is what created AI, okay? I'm not saying you created AI, but human being, you might have, right? I don't know who's sitting there right now. But all of this that we are contending with, that we are having to learn how to integrate, that we're having to learn how to manage and work with, right? Not control, because there is no control of any of that out there. There's only control of this right here, right? This brilliant intelligence called your body, right? Created all of the things that we're interacting with right now. Some body, some group of bodies and minds created an outpicturing of the inside of our mind, which we can call AI, right? It is the collective consciousness, it's the collective intelligence and stupidity, right? Everything lives there. And we know that it makes lots of mistakes interacting with AI. It goes into hallucination, right? It will mirror to each person what is that person is prompting, right? And it creates a reflection, right? Remembering that everything that is happening right now is actually a reflection of your inner state of consciousness. So how do you want to interact with everything, everywhere, all at once? First of all, learn how to interact with yourself. How to do that? By listening deeply to yourself. How to do that? By learning how to stop. By giving yourself permission to turn things off, right? You don't have to watch this video with your eyes. You can close your eyes and listen just with your ears. Even doing that especially doing that because our eyes are taken by so much, and that's not by accident, right? That is not by accident. I imagine every company has some kind of reference point to human psychology, if not somebody on staff who's conducting and helping them in terms of marketing to figure out how to capture people's attention, how to capture your eyes, right, and your ears, but especially your eyes, and to keep you entrained and entranced, right? So that it's just like, just think about what we are described as by, for example, the news, right, when they're talking about the economy, the consumer, right? They don't say the human beings, our brothers and sisters, right? We would probably just choke if we heard some newscaster say, my brothers and sisters, my fellow human family, right? They say the consumer. So consuming means eating, right? Eating, processing, digesting, right? One must digest and release waste in order to be healthy. So how do we digest? How do we take in information? Number one, permission always to simply turn everything off. Now, for some of us, for some of our human family, that can create tremendous anxiety. Yeah? But learning how to navigate discomfort is part of extricating ourselves from a system that, for the most part, often does not have your best interest in mind, right? It would like you to consume, yeah, versus you being a creator by way of quieting your own mind, learning how to still yourself, give yourself permission to drop in and be quiet with yourself and move through the discomfort long enough to be able to find your own voice inside again. And by way of that, to open a channel perhaps to the, whatever we all want to call it, the great creative force, the great creator, the, great spirit, divine, God even, whatever word, there is no word that can describe something that we don't fully understand, the mystery. But indeed, it is part of our experience and we are part of it. But if we're constantly being fed junk food, right, that we can't even digest, then how do we find our way to becoming a channel for the divine? So, right, if I were to go off on the subject of AI, right, I could channel for a very long time. Okay, but I think you're receiving a lot of that information right now. What I'm suggesting is, as I was referring to close down your eyes more often, to allow yourself perhaps to, if we need to listen, right, if it's too anxiety producing to go into complete silence right away, although that is a profound healing and you can guide yourself to that place step by step, right? We're talking about almost detoxing. We're talking about working with an addiction, yeah? And this addiction is something that was manufactured and created to, again, entrance you, hypnotize you. So closing the eyes down and just listening, that could be step one. Right now, I'm not going to look at this screen. I'm going to listen. Right? Maybe you glance at it for 1 second, choose, put it down, and simply listen. And then you might stop listening and start to channel your own voice by giving your ears something like the sound of a creek. You can use a recording, right? Yes, we are. I'm not suggesting that we're going to stop using technology. I believe that ship has sailed. However, you can choose to curate and cultivate something that enhances your own power, that suggests to you that you are the medicine, right? You are the source of something like AI or a spaceship that can actually go to Mars. These things are produced by way of the human body, the great intelligence, the brilliance of the human curiosity, which lives inside of you. But remembering how to find your own source requires turning off some of the constant, overwhelming noise. And sometimes the eyes, there's too much noise for the eyes right now in this time. So close your eyes down and see if the vibratory field, the sound quality of my voice is something that allows you to move more closely to yourself. Move more closely to yourself. Not move closer to me, but to utilize this sound current to find your way back to your own body. Just placing a hand against your heart, placing a hand on some part of your body. Slowing your breath down, right? These primary simple practices, which are actually things that your body is doing naturally all the time. Obviously, if you weren't breathing, you would not be here. I would not be here. But to consciously breathe, to consciously decide, oh yes, I want to live in my own body. I want to remember myself. No, they cannot have all of me. No, right? Speaking that out loud. No, right? When you decide to close your eyes and turn something off, no, that's enough, right? We must become good parents to ourselves and create boundaries that are healthy in order to remember ourselves back and not to allow ourselves to be fed to a machine and to consume the junk food that is being offered. Learning discernment, okay? Becoming as quiet as you can. Allowing your space, as I was saying, perhaps a recording of the sound of a babbling brook. If you don't have one near you, I happen to have one near me, which is just such a blessing, and I do not take it for granted. But if you don't, if you can take yourself somewhere, right, sitting next to a body of water, and if you can't, if it's not close to you and you don't have the means to go somewhere like that, because many of us do not, find a recording. This is a good use of technology, of a babbling brook. Apparently a babbling brook is one of the most sustaining, calming, and soothing sounds for the human being. And simply close your eyes and listen. Get a hand on your body, slow your breathing down, and continue to listen. And then you can begin to ask for support from the unseen to remember yourself as a brilliant and beautiful, amazing miracle, and start to cultivate the creator within you that can override the idea that you are simply a consumer. Okay? This is a time to wake up, to become on purpose with ourselves. Start with the simple. Remember the simple. Take off your shoes. Walk in the earth. Wherever you can. I've lived in big cities. I grew up in a big city. I grew up in San Francisco. I've lived in New York City. I've lived in Los Angeles. And even in those places, I've found green, and I've found spots and trees and places that became my familiar zones where I would go and take off my shoes, right? I went onto the roof of my flat in New York City under the full moon, and yeah, I took off all my clothes and stood under the full moon to remember myself. Okay? Now, for some people that would be crazy. For me, it's called sanity, right? Obviously, I was cultivating it in a way that was private and safe for me. But sanity is remembering yourself and finding yourself and returning yourself to your sacred body, which is a brilliant, brilliant miracle. And then see what you might want to make and create. See what might rise out of you. What offering might rise out of you. Keep it simple. Okay. Big love. So much big love to you, wherever you are.